During World War II, American soldiers stationed in various camps, whether in Europe, the Pacific, or training facilities back home, often faced extremely limited food choices. Logistics were strained, supply lines were unpredictable, and preservation technology was still evolving. As a result, troops commonly consumed foods that today would be considered unpleasant, shocking, or even borderline inedible. This batch explores 5 such foods in rich detail, analyzing why they were served, how soldiers reacted, and what nutritional purpose they served during wartime. These meals were not designed for comfort or culinary satisfaction. They were engineered for survival, portability, and long shelf life. This first set highlights some of the most notorious items from the military ration system. 1. Canned corned beef hash. Corned beef hash was a staple of American rations during WW2, yet many soldiers found it almost unbearable. It consisted of small diced beef mixed with potato chunks suspended in a greasy lump. Packed in tins, the meat often had a metallic taste due to prolonged storage. When heated, the fat separated into an oily film, creating a strong smell that permeated camp tents. Soldiers joked that it looked like dog food, and many preferred to crisp it in a pan to make it somewhat palatable. Despite its unappetizing texture, it delivered protein, fat, and calories, 3 things the military prioritized above flavor. 2. Powdered eggs. Real eggs were far too delicate for war transport, so powdered eggs became a common replacement. Soldiers mixed the powder with water to produce a scrambled egg substitute that often tasted sulfuric and artificial. The texture was rubbery, grainy, and sometimes clumped into sponge-like masses. In tropical regions, humidity caused the powder to spoil or form lumps that couldn't dissolve. Many soldiers loathed the smell, which resembled rotten eggs. Nevertheless, powdered eggs were nutritionally valuable, offering protein and essential fats in a compact form. 3. Spam. Compressed meat loaf. Spam became iconic during the war, but its reception among soldiers was mixed. While some appreciated its high-fat content and versatility, many others despised its slimy texture and overwhelming saltiness. Spam was issued so frequently that troops joked they could build shelters out of it. Its gelatinous coating, formed from cooling fat, added to its unappealing reputation. Still, Spam played a crucial logistical role because it did not spoil easily, even in humid Pacific climates. Soldiers sliced it, fried it, or ate it straight from the tin when conditions prevented cooking. 4. Hardtack biscuits. Hardtack had been a military staple since the Civil War, and WW2 versions weren't much better. These rock-hard biscuits were nearly impossible to bite without first softening them in coffee or water. They were extremely dry, sometimes crumbly, and completely flavorless. Soldiers often complained about breaking teeth on them. Insects sometimes found their way into long-stored hardtack, adding to the unpleasantness. However, hardtack remained a reliable carbohydrate source, providing energy during long marches or in emergencies when no cooking equipment was available. 5. Canned tomato juice. Rationed tomato juice appeared frequently in military C-Rations, but few soldiers enjoyed it. After months in storage, it developed a sour, alcoholic aftertaste. The acidity irritated some soldiers' stomachs, and many discarded it rather than drinking it. Nevertheless, tomato juice offered vitamin C, which was essential for preventing deficiencies in environments where fresh fruit was scarce. The military prioritized health benefits over taste, leading to its constant inclusion despite its poor reputation among troops. In summary, these first 5 foods illustrate how wartime nutrition focused entirely on practicality rather than enjoyment. Soldiers needed calories, fats, vitamins, and protein that could survive extreme temperatures and rough handling. Comfort and flavor were sacrificed for durability and efficiency. These rations became infamous not because they were dangerous, but because they were far from appetizing. They shaped soldier culture and humor, leaving behind stories that still circulate today. The following batches will continue to uncover even more shocking foods that American soldiers encountered during their WW2 service. The exploration of shocking foods American soldiers consumed during World War II, digging deeper into some of the most disliked and unusual items ever included in military rations. Some were considered disgusting due to texture or smell, while others were simply unfamiliar to the average American palate of the time. These foods played vital roles in sustaining troops under extreme conditions, but they also became the subject of jokes, complaints, and campfire stories that lasted long after the war. Below are 5 more items that soldiers frequently encountered and often dreaded. 6. C-Ration ham and lima beans. This dish became one of the most infamous wartime meals, earning the hated nickname ham and mother beans. Soldiers universally despised it. The beans were mushy, watery, and bland, while the ham was chewy and overly fatty. The combination created a strange, unpleasant smell that made eating it difficult. Despite the complaints, the meal stayed in circulation throughout the war due to its high protein and fiber content. Many soldiers traded it away whenever possible. 7. Vienna sausage and gelatin. Vienna sausages were soft, pale, and eerily uniform in texture. But what truly shocked soldiers was the gelatinous coating that suspended the sausages inside the can. When opened, the meat floated in a wobbly layer of congealed fat. Heating it caused the fat to melt into a greasy puddle that many found nauseating. Still, the sausages were a reliable protein source and could be eaten without cooking, making them useful in combat conditions. 8. Dehydrated cabbage. Dehydrated vegetables were essential to ration design, but dehydrated cabbage was exceptionally disliked. Once rehydrated, it became soggy, stringy, and emitted a strong, bitter smell. Many soldiers described it as tasting like wet cardboard. In humid regions, it clumped before rehydration, worsening the texture. Despite this, it served as a crucial vitamin-rich side dish when fresh produce was impossible to supply. 9. Tin cheese spread. The military issued a thick, rubbery cheese spread that was notoriously difficult to use. It stuck to everything: knives, fingers, and even the can. When spread on crackers, it formed a paste-like layer that was overly salty and sometimes tasted rancid in tropical climates. However, it provided essential fats needed for energy. Soldiers often melted it over heated hardtack to make it tolerable. 10. Canned stewed prunes. Stewed prunes were a digestive aid, though soldiers joked they were punishment. Overly sweet, mushy, and unappealing in appearance, they were among the least popular fruit rations. They became the subject of humor in camps, often associated with unpleasant bathroom consequences. Yet they played a vital role in maintaining digestive health during long deployments with low-fiber diets. These 5 items further illustrate the balance between necessity and palatability in wartime ration planning. While unpleasant, they kept soldiers nourished across continents and climates. The deep exploration into the shocking and often unsettling foods that American soldiers were required to eat during World War II. While soldiers fought on multiple fronts: Europe, North Africa, and the Pacific, they depended heavily on rations that could withstand extreme conditions, long transport routes, and unpredictable storage environments. The foods described here represent the intersection between necessity and discomfort, offering a glimpse into the daily challenges troops faced beyond the battlefield. This batch focuses on 5 more notorious items: mystery meat stew, pork brains and milk gravy, tinned fish cakes, dehydrated vegetable soup mix, and the peanut butter ration. 11. Mystery meat stew. Among the various canned meals issued to soldiers, mystery meat stew stood out for all the wrong reasons. It earned the nickname because its contents were often impossible to identify. Soldiers opened the can to find a thick, greasy mixture of unrecognizable meat chunks, sometimes beef, sometimes pork, sometimes both. Many pieces contained excessive fat, cartilage, and tough connective tissue. The stew gave off a strong smell, and soldiers reported that its flavor ranged from bland to unpleasantly sour, depending on how long the can had been stored. Despite its questionable taste and texture, the stew delivered essential calories, fats, and protein needed in combat zones. 12. Pork brains and milk gravy. This ration shocked many Americans because pork brains were not commonly eaten by the average household. The dish consisted of soft, pale brain pieces suspended in a creamy, milky gravy. The texture was gelatinous, spongy, and unlike anything most soldiers had ever tasted. Many refused to eat it unless they had no alternative. The smell alone turned stomachs, especially in hot climates where the can warmed naturally. Yet pork brains were incredibly rich in calories and fat, making them an efficient energy source. The military valued these nutritional benefits, even if soldiers loathed the meal. Some found ways to fry the mixture to improve texture, but most avoided it whenever possible. 13. Tinned fish cakes. Tinned fish cakes were another ration that challenged soldiers' senses. Made from ground fish scraps, sometimes including skin and tiny bones, the cakes were dense and strongly scented. When the can was opened, a powerful fishy odor escaped, often causing immediate disgust. The cakes had a mushy consistency that many found unappealing. However, fish provided important nutrients such as omega oils and protein. In regions far from supply lines, especially the Pacific, these rations were critical when fresh fish was unavailable. Soldiers tried frying them to crisp the outside, but their smell and texture still made them among the least liked meals. 14. Dehydrated vegetable soup mix. Dehydrated vegetables became common in WW2 rations due to their long shelf life and lightweight packaging. However, the vegetable soup mix was particularly disliked. After rehydration, the vegetables often became stringy, limp, and nearly tasteless. The broth was thin and weak, offering little comfort or flavor. Some soldiers joked that it tasted like hot water with sadness. Fresh vegetables were almost impossible to provide in war zones, making dehydration the only viable option. Although unappealing, the soup mix provided valuable vitamins and minerals that prevented nutritional deficiencies. Soldiers often added spices, salt, or meat scraps to make it edible. 15. Peanut butter ration. Peanut butter might sound appealing, but the wartime version was far from the smooth, flavorful product Americans know today. It was thick, dry, and extremely dense, requiring significant effort to swallow. Many soldiers needed water just to choke it down. The consistency was so pasty that it stuck to the roof of the mouth, making it difficult to eat quickly. The taste was bland and slightly bitter, lacking the sweetness of modern peanut butter. Despite these drawbacks, peanut butter was prized for its high fat and protein content, providing long-lasting energy. Soldiers often mixed it with crackers or jelly rations to make it more palatable. This third batch highlights the continued theme of WW2 military food: practicality over taste. Soldiers needed calories fast, and these strange, unappealing foods offered exactly that. Some items were culturally unusual to American palates, while others simply suffered from poor preservation technology. The soldier's life was demanding, and every meal, no matter how unpleasant, was another step toward survival on the front lines. The detailed examination of the most shocking, strange, and often dreaded foods that American soldiers consumed during World War II. As the war progressed and supply chains became strained, the U.S. Military expanded its ration selections to include even more unconventional foods, some of which became notorious among troops. These rations were engineered to survive the brutality of transport, climate, and storage, rather than to satisfy the palate. In this batch, we explore 5 additional items that shock soldiers: the Army Chocolate D-Ration Bar, canned kidney stew, pickled pig's feet, liver loaf ration, and vinegar-based canned sausage gravy. Each of these foods carried its own stories, complaints, and survival value. 16. Army Chocolate D-Ration Bar. The D-Ration Bar was one of the most infamous items issued to American soldiers. Unlike normal chocolate, the D-Bar was intentionally designed to taste unpleasant so soldiers wouldn't eat it casually. It was created as an emergency ration meant only for survival situations. The ingredients included cocoa powder, sugar, oat flour, and artificial flavors compressed into a brick-like bar. It was extremely dense, so dense that soldiers joked it could double as a weapon. The texture was gritty, and the bar was almost impossible to bite in cold weather. Instead of melting smoothly, it crumbled into dry, powdery chunks. Some soldiers grated it into hot water to make a bitter drink. Despite its poor taste, it delivered essential calories and fats in a compact form. 17. Canned kidney stew. Canned kidney stew shocked many soldiers simply because organ meats were not widely consumed in typical American households. The stew had a strong, metallic smell due to the iron-rich kidneys. When heated, the odor intensified, filling tents with an unpleasant aroma. The texture of the kidney pieces was chewy and slightly rubbery, and the stew itself often contained gritty bits from inadequate cleaning during processing. Many soldiers found the flavor overpowering and refused to eat it unless absolutely necessary. However, kidneys are nutrient-dense and high in protein, which is why the military used them as a ration filler. In extreme situations, soldiers mixed it with rice, potatoes, or spices to make it more tolerable. 18. Pickled pig's feet. Pickled pig's feet were another item that shocked soldiers due to cultural unfamiliarity and unsettling appearance. Served in a vinegar-based brine, these pale, gelatinous pieces of meat and cartilage were difficult for many troops to stomach. The texture was rubbery, slippery, and fatty. The bones added an extra layer of complication, making the dish messy and inconvenient to eat in camp environments. The strong vinegar smell carried through the air, causing many soldiers to gag before even tasting it. Nonetheless, pig's feet were practical for wartime use because they contained high amounts of fat and collagen, providing energy and nutrients in times of scarcity. Some soldiers boiled them to remove the soreness, but most avoided them entirely. 19. Liver loaf ration. Liver loaf was perhaps one of the least appetizing solid foods soldiers encountered. It consisted of ground liver pressed into a rectangular loaf and packed in a can. The loaf was dry, crumbly, and had a grainy texture that made it difficult to swallow. The flavor was intensely metallic, caused by the high iron content of liver. Many soldiers compared eating it to chewing on a rusty tin can. In hot climates, the loaf sometimes developed an unpleasant smell after storage. Still, liver was chosen because it offered vital nutrients such as iron, B vitamins, and protein, which were essential for maintaining soldier stamina. Troops often tried frying slices of the loaf to improve the texture, but even then, it remained unpopular. 20. Vinegar-based canned sausage gravy. This ration shocked soldiers with its strange layering effect. When opened, it often appeared separated, with chunks of sausage floating in a vinegary, watery liquid. Heating helped mix the ingredients, but the gravy still tasted sharp, sour, and overly salty. Many soldiers found the acidic flavor unpleasant and complained that it caused heartburn. The texture was inconsistent, sometimes too watery, sometimes too thick, Troops typically poured it over hardtack or mashed potatoes to make it edible. Despite its poor reputation, the gravy was kept in circulation because it was calorie-rich and could be stored for long periods without spoiling. Throughout these 5 items, one theme remains consistent. The military's priority was durability, nutrition, and transport efficiency. Taste was secondary. Soldiers were expected to consume whatever was provided, regardless of personal preference or cultural comfort. These rations reflected the harsh realities of global warfare, where food choices were often limited to what could survive months of shipping and storage. They also became a shared experience among troops, creating stories, jokes, and memories that continued long after the war ended. Each of these shocking foods reveals not only the dietary challenges soldiers faced, but also their resilience and adaptability in the face of discomfort. The comprehensive exploration of the 25 most shocking foods American soldiers ate in camps during World War II. By this stage of the war, supply chains were stretched thin, refrigeration was scarce, and rations needed to survive long journeys across oceans and extreme climates. As a result, soldiers encountered foods that were not only strange by today's standards, but also difficult to eat under any circumstances. This last set examines 5 additional items: coffee substitute powder, canned oxtail soup, dehydrated potatoes, malted milk tablets, and canned beef tripe. These rations reveal the creativity and desperation involved in wartime food planning, as well as the discomforts soldiers endured far from home. 21. Coffee substitute powder. Coffee was one of the most valued comforts among soldiers, but shortages often forced the military to issue substitutes. These substitutes were made from roasted grains, chicory, or even burned barley. The resulting powder was bitter, burnt tasting, and far from the familiar flavor of real coffee. Soldiers complained that it tasted like scorched dirt water. Some refused to drink it unless they were extremely tired or cold. In field kitchens, cooks sometimes mixed tiny amounts of real coffee with the substitute to mask the flavor. Still, the beverage lacked the aroma and richness soldiers longed for. Despite its unpleasant taste, the drink provided a warm boost during cold nights and long guard shifts. 22. Canned oxtail soup. While oxtail soup sounds exotic today, the wartime canned version surprised soldiers with its appearance and consistency. The soup was greasy, with thick layers of fat floating on top. The broth contained gelatin-like chunks from the cartilage of the oxtail, which many found unappetizing. Actual pieces of meat were few, making the soup more of a fatty broth than a hearty meal. The smell was strong, and when heated, it became even more pungent. Soldiers often skimmed off the fat or mixed the soup with rice or crackers to make it more edible. Nevertheless, it provided warmth and calories, 2 critical components in harsh weather conditions, especially in European winter campaigns. 23. Dehydrated potatoes. Potatoes were a staple food, but nearly impossible to ship fresh across oceans. As a solution, the military created dehydrated potato flakes. Unfortunately, when rehydrated in camp conditions, the result was often lumpy, watery, and glue-like. Soldiers joked that the texture resembled wallpaper paste. The taste was bland and slightly sour, especially if the powder absorbed moisture before use. Some creative cooks in the field mixed butter or powdered milk into the potatoes to improve the flavor. Even so, dehydrated potatoes became symbolic of wartime compromised, nutritious, but disappointing. They were lightweight and shelf-stable, making them essential for troop movements despite their poor reputation. 24. Malted milk tablets. These tablets were intended as a quick, high-energy snack enriched with vitamins. However, the chalky texture and overly sweet flavor made them difficult to enjoy. Soldiers compared them to eating sweet dust. When chewed, they crumbled into a powder that stuck to the tongue and teeth, requiring water to wash down. The taste was reminiscent of stale candy or spoiled cereal. Despite this, the tablets had one advantage: they were portable, heat-resistant, and could be stored indefinitely. Soldiers often carried them in pockets during long marches or reconnaissance missions. Some melted them into hot water to create a makeshift malted drink, though the result was still far from pleasant. 25. Canned beef tripe. Tripe cow stomach was another organ meat ration that shocked many soldiers. Its appearance alone was off-putting: pale, rubbery strips floating in a greasy broth. The smell was particularly strong, especially in tropical climates. The taste was mild, but the texture was extremely chewy and difficult to swallow. Many soldiers avoided it at all costs, trading it away whenever possible. However, tripe was used because it was inexpensive, protein-rich, and abundant. In Europe and Asia, locals had long traditions of cooking tripe, but American troops were unfamiliar with it and unprepared for its unique characteristics. Some soldiers fried it to improve the texture, but even then, it remained one of the most disliked rations of the war. This final batch demonstrates how far from comfort wartime food could be. Many of these items would be rejected outright today, yet soldiers had to accept them as part of daily life. Rations were designed for survival, not enjoyment, and the unusual ingredients reflected the need to stretch resources as far as possible. The creativity of military food engineers combined with the desperation of global conflict resulted in meals that were often shocking, unappetizing, and memorable for all the wrong reasons. Despite these challenges, soldiers adapted, improvised, and found humor in their circumstances. Complaining about rations became a shared bonding ritual, helping troops endure the hardships of war. These foods, though unpleasant, represent a significant part of military history and highlight the resilience and determination of the soldiers who relied on them.